Our focus this morning is on why we have not been able to get sugar for Ghanaian people and for export, and for what about we wanted to get the sugar from Komenda Sugar Factory to do. Why having to be able to produce it for a period of 8 years? What does it say about our industrialization policy? And what does it say about our quest? And let's not get it wrong. This is perhaps one of the single most important projects in the Republic of Ghana. We've had the president speak about it. We've had the finance minister make several statements and policy direction. And when it comes to the trade ministry there, I mean, you can reference almost 16 different stories within the last 24 months. That's 2 years about what we are doing with the Komenda Sugar Factory. And it appears still not to be up and running. Exactly what's wrong with us, exactly what's wrong with trying to revamp an institution like that, and how much are we putting into it? We gave you some figures, right? So what we did first is to ask the relevant ministry and government to give us details on what has happened with our quest to revive the Komenda Sugar Factory. In this RTR request, the response was quite clear. First, on the strategic partner involved in the project, this is what they said. Said the ministry commenced consultation with PwC, transaction advisor, to search for a strategic investor to operationalize the factory. This was because of the failure of the process initiated in 2016 to divest majority shares of the company to a private investor. Now, in February 2019, the ministry constituted an interim management committee made up of representatives of the government, traditional authorities, district assembly, and the private sector to oversee the selection process of this strategic investor or partner, if you like. In June 2019, Park Agrotech Ghana Limited was approved by Cabinet as the preferred strategic investor for the Komenda Sugar Factory. The offer by Park Agrotech to take up a concession instead of outright purchase was considered the most competitive because the ownership of the factory would be retained by the government, whilst Park Agrotech invests $28 million in the company and pays a $3 million annual concession fee to government for 15 years. In total, we're expecting $45 million as the concession fee. However, there was a delay in concluding negotiations between lawyers of Park Agrotech and PwC, and PwC was the transaction advisor, as I stated early on, in respect of the conditions precedent for the concession agreement to come into force. The international travel restrictions resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic further delayed the company from sending engineers from India to undertake an audit of the plant for the purpose of assessing the plant and equipment maintenance and replacements required to restart production. They say COVID-19 played a role, and so it delayed them getting people into the Republic of Ghana for them to assess the plant and see the things they have to do for it to have maintenance and replacement, which is required to restart the process. Now, the ministry issued a directive, that is 31st of August 2021, which will be the final deadline by which time Park Agrotech and PwC should have reached a final determination of all guarantees to be met by the parties for the agreement to be made effective. At expiry of this deadline, if no final agreement has been reached, the Ministry of Trade and Industry will terminate the transaction and revert to the board. By the close of business on the 31st of August 2021, no agreement had been reached between PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Park Agrotech. Accordingly, on the 1st of September 2021, the Ministry of Trade and Industry issued a termination letter, effectively terminating the transaction process and thus handing over the management and operation of the company to the board to make a determination on the way forward to revive the company. To avert further delays, the board has taken over the revival. The board has taken over the revival of the factory and has started the process of operationalization of the Integrated Sugar Development Project with the support of the ministry under the One District, One Factory initiative. So the question of how much money has been invested to revamp the factory after 7 years of inaction. The company has received support under the One District, One Factory initiative and has undergone overhauling and comprehensive retooling and maintenance in preparation for the commencement of sugar production. So what we are told today is that there's been comprehensive retooling and maintenance of the plant in preparation for sugar production. The factory would import and refine raw sugar in the short term due to the unavailability of sugarcane in the right quantity and quality. So during the entirety of the period we were looking for strategic investor, nobody in the Republic of Ghana thought it wise to actually start a plantation of a sort to produce sugar, so that if the investor comes in, we'll know what to do. Now the direction is that the factory would import and refine the raw sugar in the short term due to the unavailability of sugarcane in the right quantity and quality. Unavailability in the right quantity and quality. Now, a facility of 46,350,000 has to date been disbursed by the partnering financial institutions. And let's not get it wrong. These are GCB Bank, CBG Bank, and Prudential Bank. They are the partnering financial institutions. They are the ones who have actually disbursed 46 million for the comprehensive overhauling and retooling of the factory. So we claim to have revamped this factory in 2016 and allow it to sit idle. Then we now have spent 46 million overhauling and retooling the factory, and the addition of a raw sugar handling system to refine the raw sugar which we are going to import into the Republic of Ghana. Another facility of 6.2 million was also disbursed by CBG to cover the purchase of sugarcane and other operational expenses during the test run period. So this, in a sum, is what has happened from 2016 till date, because this is a more recent response to our RTI. Now let me get to the phone lines and bring in Ransford Amoah. He's a former board secretary of the Komenda Sugar Factory. Ransford, you're welcome to the Super Morning Show.
Good morning.
Now let me start by asking you, because let me put in proper perspective. Which period did you serve as board secretary on this particular board?
Between 2014 and 2017.
So, between 2014 and 2017?
Yes.
When was your board dissolved, and really, what happened to your board in 2017? I want the exact period.
2017, there's a government board, was a board, the factory. So after the administration of John Romani left office, then we also handed over, because we handed over the facility on the 6th of January 2017.
So Ransford, I want to hear you properly, but I'm getting some feedback from the radio set close to you. If it's possible for you to move slightly away from it so that I can have a very interesting conversation.
I'm not having any radio.
Sorry?
I said I'm not having radio.
Okay, one. So now you were on this board when the decision was taken to search for first a transaction advisor and a strategic investor. Were you?
That was, I mean, 2016.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. If you remember, on the 30th of May 2016, when the plant was commissioned to test run, the minister at the time, Dr. Costio Gabra, made a public pronouncement that there will be a competitive bidding for to flow shares of the factory for individuals to partner the government to run it. So it was not going to be run 100% by the state. That is what he indicated. So in August 2016, we contracted PwC to search for partners who would take 70% of the factory, the 70% shares, and the government will have 30%. So at the end of the day, we went through the process. Price Waterhouse or PwC came out with some company, but we didn't conclude with the process when we had to hand over because of the election 2016.
Now, let me understand this properly. So, you did not conclude, but had you settled on a company to take over? Because according to the ministry, the failure of the process to divest majority shares of the company happened in 2016.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying, that they were in the process. So we did not conclude. We didn't conclude because 11 different companies showed interest. They showed interest in the factory, of which they were in the process of concluding on a conversation. But unfortunately, we left power and there was no conclusion to that. But I know that this current government engaged the PwC, of which they, in 2017, 2018, they did some work about that.
Yes.
So we did not settle on any company. So as at the time we're handing over the facility to the current administration, the factory was 100% owned by Ghana government, and the Ministry of Finance holds in trust of the state.
The factory is still even owned by the government of Ghana. That's not in dispute. In fact, even if you had gotten Park Agrotech on board, the agreement we have with them is that government still would have owned the factory. Now, was it envisaged out of the 11? Was Park Agrotech one of those institutions you were supposed to recruit?
Not at all. Park Agrotech was not part. As for Park Agrotech, they were engaged by this very administration. That was around 2019. That, they indicated that they were in the process of getting a strategic investor. And in Park, according to them, in November 26th, they introduced Park Agrotech to the chief of Komenda that that company had won it. And I remember on that I did the statement that was the hoax.
Okay, Ransford, I still have that difficulty with hearing you. So if
involvement of the
forgive me, but I still struggle to hear you. So if you could reposition yourself nicely, I think we would have a better feel of what you're trying to say.
Hello?
Brilliant. And now you are better. So you are making the point that, yes, Park Agrotech came in 2019. And this was in June when the agreement was approved by Cabinet as the preferred strategic investor. That's without doubt. The question I was asking in connection with this is, when you envisage recruiting somebody to receive some part of the shares, what exactly was the idea behind the revamp of Komenda Sugar Factory? That you were going to produce sugar in Komenda and other parts of the country, or you're going to import raw sugar so that you refine that?
The rationale behind the establishment of Komenda Sugar Factory is to produce sugar locally in order to minimize the importation of sugar. So importing raw sugar to be refined in this country is never part of the original plan. Because we know that sugar is one of the few commodities that are imported into this country, and millions of dollars are spent annually to import sugar. So in minimizing so, we can set sugar factories around, because as of 2016, per the statistics, they said we would need not less than 11 sugar factories in Ghana. So government must set a pace by establishing sugar factory and encourage the investors to put up other factories so that we'll be able to minimize the importation. So the current plan defeat the purpose of establishing it doesn't make economic sense. You import the raw sugar today, but adding on onto the import bill, which doesn't make sense economically.
Now, I understand you perfectly, except they say this is a temporary measure they are putting in place because they do not have, the keyword they use is the unavailability of the right quality and quantity of sugarcane that they want. Prior to revamping this factory, were there in existence in the Republic of Ghana sugar plantations that could make available the raw sugar for it to be used? That is before the 2016 that the factory was revamped or was given the impetus required. Had you factored into that plan of revamping plantations across the country, or you were going to rely on existing farms which were supposed to supply you the sugar?
My brother, in setting up the Komenda sugar factory, there were processes: the short term, the medium term, and the long term. The short term will depend on the outgoers, the existing outgoers, who could supply you between 500 to 700 tons of sugarcane every day. The existing sugarcane farmers within the western and central regions, as at the time, they could supply between 500 to 700 tons every single day. So that was the short term. And the medium term and long term, the government must also help the farmers to expand their acreage. The factory must also own farms, 40% of the needed raw material. And on the November 2016, the Parliament approved the second tranche of the loan, which was $24.54 million. That money was supposed to be accessed by government in February 2017, and the money was ready in February 2017. Due to that, our board, we developed 125 acres of sugarcane nursery plantation. 125.
So where was this done? Forgive me, Ransford, let's take it step by step. You said you had developed some plantation. Where exactly was this plantation?
Just beside, if you watch the documentary or your colleague did, Kojo Nyakon.
Yes.
You could see that he was certain land just beside the factory. That parcel of land is over 3,000 acres. So part of it, which is 125, developed as a nursery plantation. That nursery was supposed to be transplanted by February 2017. When you transplant the 125-acre nursery plantation, it will cover 10,000 acres. Because every 25 acres of sugarcane nursery will cover 2,000 acres when you transplant. So we plan for developing 10,000 acres of land, farm. And they abandoned all these arrangements. And in 2018, the government sold the sugarcane on that 125 acres to Akpeteshie Distillers. Because that sugarcane,
so take your time.
To produce sugar.
I want to interrogate that further. When you say the government sold the 120 and over acres of a plantation of sugarcane to Akpeteshie Distillers, which specific Akpeteshie Distillers are you talking about? What's the evidence to back this transaction you allude to?
Their reason was that they were not ready to run the plant because they were.
No, I'll come to the reason. I am asking for evidence to back it. When was it sold? Who sold it?
Listen, if you are asking the evidence, when you go to a company known as NIM Cashew and Agricultural Products Limited, NIM in Ahafo region, I've been mentioning their name since 2018, that they came to haul sugarcane from Komenda, the factory's own farm, 125 acres. They bought those sugarcanes and transported them to NIM in Ahafo region because they produce sugar from, they produce alcohol from cashew, but they want to try on the sugarcane. This is somebody's entity. If I'm, for the past 6 years, they would have taken me on. I've been mentioning this countless occasions.
So this company you are talking about is the Akpeteshie producer you make reference to?
No. As for the Akpeteshie producer, they were the individual. And when you go to Aja in the Kisi, Komenda, those areas, those who produce sugar from Akpeteshie, from sugarcane, they bought it. They are living witnesses. And I can give you some of their contacts for you to contact them. But I mentioned the name because it's a big company, NIM Cashew and Agricultural Products Limited. They brought trailers, articulators to Komenda to haul the sugar canes to NIM region. And this was a cane that was developed by the state. The company That is during our tenure in 2016. That was around October 2016. That plantation ought to be transplanted into February 2017. Because they abandoned it, and the sugarcane is a perishable. It's perishable. You get it. So if they are not ready to run the plant, and the excuse was that they were in the process of getting an investor, so there was no need for this sugarcane to be there, which in some way somehow it makes sense.
Now,
if it will be there and it will go with, we must use it for different things. But the fact of the matter is that because the government is not ready to run the plant, they did not even assess the loan, the $24.5 million, which was the second tranche from the Indian Exim, $24.5 million. That money, the purpose of that money is to develop the sugarcane. Use the money to help growers to expand their acreage so that there will be the availability of enough raw material, even if you do main production. But they have abandoned all these. So you ask yourself, for the past 7 years, they've not assessed that loan, they've not grew a single sugarcane, but they keep talking about unavailability of raw material, but only to claim and tell you that in the short term, we are going to import raw sugar to be refined here. But the fact of the matter is they have the deals with some of the importers who are financing their party's activity. That is why they are not interested to produce sugar locally from our sugarcane from our farmers.
The difficulty with making such claims is that you then will force me to ask for evidence to back it. When you say that they are actually in tandem or working with some people financing, which specific individuals are you making reference to?
Listen, I have been in this Komenda sugar for the past 10 years.
No problem, but I just want an answer to the question.
I know what? Hello?
Yes, I want you to answer the question. Which specific individuals are you alleging are involved in this collusion to actually import raw sugar into the country for Komenda?
I say the government. The government.
Yes, but that's a very vague and broad engagement. Specifics, please.
And this government, their action and inaction clearly tells you. It tells everyone that they are not willing.
That is not the question I asked you, Ransford. I asked the question. You are the one who introduced the element of a collusion of a sort to deliberately get raw sugar into the system. I'm asking for further and better particulars. Who is colluding with which institution to get this sugar into the system? That's what I can interrogate. So those specifics are what I'm asking for.
But for this, I can only talk about the government side because there are some individuals who even somehow they approached me. But I cannot mention their names because it was
let me move on. I understand you perfectly.
Hello?
Yes, I understand you perfectly. It's just that when you throw about an allegation, it is incumbent on me to explore it. Now, the question I want to ask you next, yes.
I understand. That's what I'm telling you, that some importers, I'm not saying all importers of sugar, some importers within the business of sugar, they are in tandem with the government to ensure that this Komenda sugar factory doesn't run. And that the government is going ahead with them. That is right. Because the actions and inaction of the government clearly tell you. Because if indeed you accuse your predecessor.
Ransford, I think we agree on this point that since you're not giving me further and better particulars, we will have to leave it there. I have a question about the amount that's been used to quickly for comprehensive overhauling and retooling of the factory. The government says it has spent $46,350,000. Because you've been on this board before and you understand the architecture around Komenda Sugar Factory, do you think this is an amount of money justified for the comprehensive overhauling and the retooling of the factory, plus the addition of a raw sugar handling system to refine raw sugar?
My brother, on this, I'm very surprised. Very, very much surprised. Because, this factory, I don't know if you remember, they've been using excuses, and I remember the former minister once said that even the factory was not completed. I challenge him that that is never the truth. Everything was complete before we handed over. And this is the government of Ghana project. The loan was was given by the Exim Bank, and the Indian government made sure it was part of the agreement that an Indian company must be the contractor to build the factory for us. A consultant to the project must be Indian. So the National Federation of Sugar Factories in India was the consultant to the project. The Cestec India Private Limited was the contractor. All the machines that were procured from India. And these machines were state-of-the-art machines. It had lifespan over 50 years. And there was a warranty of 10 years. But you need to do routine maintenance and servicing as you are working with it. What I have, in the original plan, there was a refinery. So we built the refinery. But there was no plan that you can bring a raw sugar somewhere to be refined at Komenda. So this current administration, what they have done is to build silos that could hold the raw sugar at the refinery to be refined there. So when they talk about the retooling, people shouldn't think they changed all the machines that were installed between 2014 and 2016. No. All those machines that were installed are still there and are functioning. Today, if you go to Komenda, you will see that they are doing certain production. The raw sugar refinery, they have started. They started the machine on Saturday. And it's the same machine that we procured that are still there. So I remember when the minister made the assertion that the factory was not complete. I told them, but why don't they involve a report to the Indian High Commission that their national, the company that built the factory, did not complete the job. So they should come back to complete, because this was not a gift to Ghana. It was something that we have to pay. We need to repay the loan that we took from Indian government. So why should we leave if indeed there's nothing better? We leave them and spend a lot of money to retool or whatever you call it. And the amount we have is very, very outrageous, seriously. Because what I know they have done is that they did sandblasting, and clean things aside the silos. That's what they have done. They intended to build another warehouse, but when you go there, that warehouse has been at the foundation stage for the past 2 years. Foundation since 2022 that they intended to build another warehouse, so that warehouse will store the raw sugar. They are still using the existing warehouse, which was built by our administration.
Well, I need to wrap up this conversation. Perhaps the final comment I'll hear on from you is in the philosophy behind government doing this on its own. It appears we are struggling to get an investor. Do we still need government actively involved in revamping and running of Komenda Sugar Factory?
The fact of the matter is, Raymond, the government, when the Park Agrotech, I contacted Park Agrotech, why they were not, but they told me they were willing to run the plant. But the government was trying to let them do the raw sugar production rather, instead of raw sugar refinery production, instead of producing from the cane sugar, because they had gone to meet the University of the Cape Coast to plan on the raw material, the tissue culture, where they can improve on the quality, the sugar content, and all those stuff. But the government was not willing. Currently, I can tell you authority that they want to lease the factory to a certain company. That is why they are doing the test run for the company to understand the operations of the Komenda Sugar Factory. So that is what the current Minister of Trade and Industry wants to do. So maybe in the coming months, we may hear that they've given the company on a lease basis to a certain company, which is an Indian company but based in Uganda.
Very well. And Ransford Amo, I'm grateful to you for your time this morning. He's a former board secretary of the Komenda Sugar Factory, its company, from the period of 2014 to 2017. And we sought to understand why the lapse, the new strategy, and whether it's grounded in what the history of the company has been.